Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Growth and Scaling Podcast. I'm your host, Todd Westra, and this is one of those cool days where you get to hear an interview of someone with a 3-digit .com. You just don't meet many people that own one. You don't meet many people that are thriving by owning one. And this one in particular is a fantastic 3-letter .com. Job.com. I mean, seriously, how much cooler can that get? So we've got a special guest today. One of the things that I was so impressed though in this interview was not only the interview that we had on air, but the interview we had leading up to this and post interview, which is fantastic. I mean, this guy is one of those absolutely giant teddy bears that you look at and you get a little intimidated, but the love and passion he has for his business is just awesome. You're going to love this interview. If you're one of those people who have tried to grow your business and keep hitting walls, but then you keep pushing and keep moving, finding the right mentors was one of the keys for his growth. Finding the right partner was one of the keys for his success. And as you listen to his story, I hope that you can resonate a little bit with his journey, because his life has not been easy. Nothing was handed to him on any kind of platter, let alone a silver platter. And he's literally gone from the bottom of the barrel up to growth into a 9-figure business, trying to get to that 10-figure mark in the next 5 years. Mission-driven, goal-driven, partner and mentor-driven leadership is what he provides to his company, provides to his growth journey, and you are going to love hearing the story. So with no further ado, listen to this amazing story and catch up with me on the backside, because I'd love to get your feedback. Leave comments below if it's driven some kind of emotional trigger inside of you to hear this story and how he's been able to grow and scale. Absolutely phenomenal. I had a hard time turning the interview off. This is the longest one I've ever had on the podcast, and maybe the longest one I'll ever do. But it was fantastic. I think you're gonna love every minute of it. So thanks for being here today. Welcome to the Growth and Scaling Podcast. This is your host, Todd Westra, and I am so glad you're here today, because we are going to interview an amazing founder or executive who is going to share with us their decisions that they made that exploded their growth. So if you need some inspiration, you want to hear how other businesses are doing it, this is the place to be, and we are glad you're here. Enjoy this episode. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Growth and Scaling Podcast. And today we are so thrilled because, yes, you know it, it's very rare you get someone like a guest we have today who has a 3-letter .com on his business name. It is the job.com. And that is even harder, I would assume, to get than just some random acronym. So we're going to jump into how he got that, how he got his business started. He is a great man, great dad, and a great business leader. We welcome Arran to the studio. Arran, tell us who you are and who do you try and help?
Thank you. So listen, Todd, thank you so much for having me on. And I'm Arran Stewart. I'm the co-founder, chief visionary officer of job.com, or head nerd, I probably describe myself as. We have a pretty straightforward mission at the business, which we tell everyone in the company and we always emulate, which is we're here to help as many people feed their families and pay their bills as possible. That's what job.com does.
Love it.
The name. And it's something that, myself my entire life, my entire career has been in recruitment, HR tech, human resource technology, and I dedicated my life to that mission to help people feed their families and pay their bills.
I love it. I would dare say that there's probably very few people, even business leaders, who know their mission statement and can rattle it off like you just did. I love it.
Oh yeah, no, I live by it. So it's because it's something that I guess as we probably go through this podcast, I'll explain more of my story.
Yeah.
But it resonates so closely to me because of my life and upbringing and everything else.
I love it. Well, before we get to your upbringing, I want to hear, first of all, like, being in HR is one thing, but getting the name job.com, that is something different. And how did you actually get that? How did you work towards this mission anyway? Like, I don't know, maybe this will lead into your upbringing, but jump into the other stuff.
But yeah, so to be fair, so I founded the company in at the end of 2011.
Okay.
So we're 12 years in now, but it wasn't called job.com back then. It was called My Job Matcher, which is a real mouthful.
Yes.
The object, which everybody would say wrong, my job catcher, my job match, my job matchmaker, you name it, they would think of whatever to call it other than its name. And but the objective was, and at the time, statistically in the United Kingdom, because I'm British, even though I live here in the United States, but I started the company originally in the United Kingdom.
Okay.
Statistically, the average job seeker would spend 7 hours a week looking for work online and would register with 21 separate employment sites.
Wow.
21 separate logins, user interfaces, technical capabilities. And I was like, it's a job looking for a job.
You gotta be kidding me. 21 separate sites. Holy cow.
21 separate sites, yeah. Those were the stats for the market. And I was like, well, if we combine artificial intelligence with job aggregation, we can utilize match technology to search for jobs that match your resume every single day. And thus was created My Job Matcher. And it grew very, very fast in the UK. Obviously a much smaller country, but 7 million people registered on the website.
Right. Wow.
And that was sort of 1 in 3 of the working population. And that meant we got a lot of interest from institutional investor cash, so VCs, PE. We took in our first institutional cash in 2016, and we decided that we were going to come and try and, let's go to America.
Yeah.
And so, quite naively and bravely, as entrepreneurs do, jumped off the cliff, figuring out how to build the plane on the way down.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah, we landed in the US in 2017 through acquisition. So we were like, do we buy or build? And we acquired, first 2 companies we acquired were Active Hire and Zillion Resumes. And then it just so happened in the summer of 2017, on the grapevine, we heard that job.com was for sale as a business. And it had been operating here as a job board since 1998.
Wow.
And we approached the owner, talked, what can we do and how can we make this deal happen? We sold him the vision of the business. He fell in love with that.
Yeah.
And with a combination of cash, earn-out and stock, we acquired job.com, and thus now we own and have
that is so awesome.
URL business.
Holy cow.
So
that is so rad. Yeah. And the job.net, I saw you have job.net as well.
We do have job. So that was actually part of the deal as well. So he owned both. And probably out of respect, I won't say on the podcast how much he had paid for them. Okay. But I can tell you it was multiple 7 figures in the 90s.
Wow. Holy crap.
Yeah. So just for the URLs. So,
during that .com boom, that was like probably one of the big .com booms.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you said, 3-letter domain for the word of the industry.
Right.
And to this day, obviously the URLs are heavily valued on our balance sheet. Yeah. Because I would argue that it's one of the most expensive domain URLs in the world, probably. It's got to be, So it's definitely up there. That's for sure. Wow. So that's the URL history of how we got job.com.
That is amazing. So let's take it one step back then. 2011. You are in what kind of scenario to drive you into wanting to start a job matchmaker service? I mean, what were you looking for work? I mean, what's kind of the backstory here?
Yeah, so actually we can take it a little further step back actually. So if we go back to 2006, I had finished college and was working for a publicly traded company called S3, big recruitment staffing agency that had a technology division that owned a website called the IT Job Board. And I was working there and arrogantly thought I could do it better and left and set up my first job board in 2007, which was called Jobs from Blue. And it was basically a networking platform for blue collar workers to refer their friends to warehouse work and industrial work, etc.
I love it.
It failed.
It
failed miserably. Yeah, it failed miserably for a multitude of reasons. One, I was too young and too naive and way too arrogant, and so I made so many mistakes. It was unbelievable. Yeah, because I was in my sort of 20s at the time. It was hugely undercapitalized because I had funded it myself and naively thought you could launch a a website business in a hugely competitive market where Monster and Indeed were dominating everywhere, and I launched it with 100,000 of my own money, and that was all I had. Literally remortgaged my property, loans everywhere. So it almost bankrupted me, that journey. But during it, I received mentorship from a guy called Alex Strang and another woman called Helen Reynolds. Who kind of gave me a bit of advice that, maybe I could spin out a part of the technology of the platform. And thus was born my second business, which was called iResourcer. And that became sort of part of a big PE house called Hamilton Bradshaw in 2009. And that was the turning point for my business journey. That was my first sort of taste, I guess, of success in achieving something. And so once that had finished, and I'd finished with iResourcer, I then set up My Job Matcher with my business partner now, Paul Sloyne, at the end of 2011. That's how I got there. So I'd already done two entrepreneurial, one screw up, one kind of success, and then moved to, My Job Matcher, now job.com at 2011.
I love it. But you were arrogant enough to launch a competing site to your employer, but you were humble enough to receive mentorship, and that's where you started to see the success. Is that right?
That's it. That's exactly right. Yeah, because what I realised was that I obviously didn't have all the answers, as much as I thought I did, because I'd be like, well, I've done this and I know this and I know that, and it was actually like, well, funnily enough, there are many layers and dimensions to this process called success and scaling, and you know about this much, and I learned that the hard way. That's awesome. Which I'm really grateful for now, because it was the most valuable lessons I ever had in my career, I reckon.
You kind of have to hit that.
Oh yeah, you do. You have to have the rock. You have to hit the rock bottom, I think, to truly build yourself to be where you want to be, because it just doesn't happen where you just fall out and go, oh, I created a great business and it was seamless and there was no issues. It's like, said nobody.
Very rarely.
I just don't believe it.
Yeah.
Very, very rarely. And normally if they do that, it's because there's a huge backstory of all the lessons they learned whilst maybe employed.
How it's set up, how
it's done, or they just walk out and you're just automatically an entrepreneurial god. It just doesn't happen. So it takes those moments to truly craft you, and it's a test of character.
It is, because
a lot of people give up, and that's the reason why, sadly, they do. The line is 99% of people will give up, and then there's that 1% of lunatics like us lot that still keep going for punishment, and then in the end, with enough inertia, we seem to start to break through and gain some traction.
It feels good to fail sometimes. Come on.
Yeah, it does. I guess when you start to appreciate the value of failure, which is, absorbing that knowledge, taking that wisdom, you realize just how valuable those moments truly are.
For sure. And
how much you grow from them.
For sure.
And so, yeah.
Well, so looking back on this journey, I mean, you and I know that at some point you're going to want to throw in here just even the backstory behind why you were looking for jobs, why maybe you had this arrogance about you, but maybe take us through a little bit of that and then feed us into the growth journey that you've had in your business. What have been the favorite highlights along the way? What are the key points where you were like, yes, this is going to work and this is going to go?
Yeah, good point. So, backdrop, why was I driven to help as many people feed their families and pay their bills as possible? I grew up in economically and statistically the worst place to live in the whole of the United Kingdom, called Luton Town. Every year voted that. Former Buick manufacturing town, 250,000 people, all manufacturing left the town, and it became a crime hotbed. I had some very close friends, one in particular called Noel Whelan, and I watched some of the journey of people like him and his family who lost their ability to work and feed their families and pay their bills, which inherently drove very negative behaviour, alcoholism, drug abuse, etc. And Noel was one of my best friends. My son's middle name is Noel. I lost Noel in 2014. He died.
Darn it.
I lost him. Yeah, and I realised how important the premise of people being able to feed their families and pay their bills truly is.
Yeah.
Because the saying is right, the devil makes work for idle hands.
Yes, he does.
It certainly does. I watched it, I lived it, and I also experienced it by doing negative things, as we discussed in my teenage years, living that life, as I share with people, sadly, I am a convicted felon. Yeah. I made mistakes. My hands were idle and I made those mistakes. And I also realized just how important it is, not just for others to feed their families, but for me too, but doing good work, doing the right work. So that's the backdrop to my motivation. That's why I can tell you my mission without having to even think about it, because it is the DNA of the business. It's the DNA of myself.
Love it.
Going to the next part of your question, and obviously what asking about the story and scaling.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of time on job.com. So we had, I'm going to be pretty brutal to myself and go, the beginning of my job matcher, which we'll just say job.com because it's just easier. Right. But the beginning of job.com, when we first launched, it was successful almost by accident. And what I mean by that is when I think about the energy that went into thinking about scaling the first part of the business, it just happened. And so we just suddenly launched it. It was published on BBC News because it was this brand new site that can you don't have to search anymore.
Well, it was a new thing,
It was a new thing, a new shiny thing, and everyone wanted a piece of it. And so it just scaled and grew, and we were like, wow, this is great. This is so exciting. But then came the true challenges, because we worked on what's called a partnership model where we would activate our partners' data and send those users job matches every day. Right. And then the data privacy laws changed with GDPR in 2015. Wow. And literally just put an axe straight through it. And we were like, we can't do that anymore. And then suddenly the tests of our business model came. And it was like, okay, now it's not so easy. This is really much harder to try and generate a response. And then another axe that came through to us was the United Kingdom has a thing called Universal Job Match, which is where, as a provider or an advertiser of jobs, you can reach all of the people that are on what we class as social welfare, who are looking for work, being paid by the government whilst they're unemployed. And there were several million people at any one time. And it would generate huge levels of click response and revenue for us as business. And in 2016, the government went, we're turning it off. We believe it's anti-competitive. And we were like, oh, no. We were like, what? Sucks. Why? And so we had this burst of growth, and now we're going backwards at a rate as fast as we can.
Oh my god!
And I'm like, this is a nightmare. And I'm like, okay, what can we do to continue this growth trajectory? And I'm like, America. Let's go to America. The data protection laws are a little bit more lenient there, and also this is land of opportunity. The economy is 10 times the size when it comes to our industry. Let's go to America. So.
Hey, little secret, you're not the first ones to come from the UK over to America.
Apparently there's some history behind that. I'm not sure what it is. Yeah, there's a little history behind that one, yeah. So we had to so we did that. We came here, and then when we arrived, which was 2017, we've been backed, with some institutional capital, which was great. And we were like, okay, buy or build. Right. We were like, we're going to buy it first, because we don't know any. This is 50 countries in one country with all the different state laws, and it's just like, it was, for us Brits, it was like this was like a landmine of
that is intimidating. That's intimidating.
Oh, it was terrifying. It was terrifying. So, and then when we analysed the market, we looked at the direct competitors, which were Indeed.com, ZipRecruiter. Right. And it was very daunting, because we were like, okay, these guys are
huge.
They are huge. Yeah. They are gargantuous next to what we experience in the United Kingdom. And it was at that point where we reflected on the business model and were like, I don't think we can compete. Yeah. And it was like we sat down as my business partner and I, Paul Sloyne, who happens to also be one of my closest friends ever, and mentor, brother, everything. Awesome. And we looked each other in the eye and we're like, what do we do? And that was the first time ever that I would say we really strategically analysed the entire market of hiring and went, where can we transform? Where can we make impact? Yeah. And it was in the recruitment and staffing industry. Interesting. You've got 20,000 staffing agencies operating in America, 19,800 of them do under 100 million in revenue. So it's this huge, small, highly fragmented industry.
Right.
But like every market is going through digital transformation.
Yeah.
Where you pair software with humans to deliver a more effective process.
Right.
And I was like, could we be an e-staffing platform? Could we be digital staffing? Could we be the Amazon to the Walmart?
Right.
You know, and thus was built Job.com and what we have today. And it just,
that's amazing.
That
and since that point, you had a couple of key acquisitions and you grew, and now you are revenue wise, you made it. Like you're 900.
So we did 109 million in 2022. So we did 46 million in 2021, 109 million in 2022. This year, the rate that we're going, we should hit about 250.
Wow.
And yeah. So you know, we really are well on our way now, and you know, we have a huge tech stack. We've got we've done a huge because this is the thing, right? Now, when you look at, so there's 228,000 recruitment consultants in America.
Yeah.
And all of them are now going through digital transformation, which is where you take a human process and pair it with software.
Sure.
Well, now it means that all of that process can be patented.
Aha.
So we have filed 75 patents. We've had 23 granted, and we have 257 trade secrets in queue.
Wow.
To take ownership of this market as it goes through full digital transformation. The goal is to get to $1 billion in revenue by 2025, 2026.
Sheesh.
And I believe that we are going to do it. You know, we are really growing at an incredible rate.
Well, you know, jumping from 40 to 109 in a year where, you know, arguably it was one of the worst economies in America for a long time, that is awesome. That is so cool.
Yeah, it's good. And it's nice as well because unlike other tech companies, we are a very profitable business. We run a really strong EBITDA.
Right.
So, which is nice. And
it is nice.
Yes, that is nice. Yeah. So, but it's it took me 10 years to become an overnight success.
I get it. Hey, listen, man, there is no one here telling you got lucky, because it is a lot of hard work to get to that lucky point, right?
Yeah, it certainly is, and listen, there's a lot more work to be done. What I love is the fact of how many people's lives we've touched.
Yeah.
How many candidates have gone through our process? How many have managed to better feed their families and pay their bills? I love that every day that is happening. We are so blessed at the company. We have such a good team of humans that work in the business. Like, I'd love to be like, oh yeah, it's me and the other founder. You know, we've done it all. No, we have a phenomenal team of people that work with us who break their back trying to make this happen, and we work so well collectively, and they believe in the vision and the mission, which is to help people feed their families and pay their bills. That's the opening remark that, you know, I sort of hand that baton of, you know, this is what we're here to do, and they carry that torch with pride, and I'm very proud of everyone we have in the business.
I love it. Absolutely love everything you've said. I mean, this has been a fantastic interview in that I love the mission. It was made clear from the very start. It's like you've got this backstory, but the backstory doesn't mean anything compared to what you've done with the backstory. You know, it's like there's a lot of people with backstory, but there's very few people that can take that and translate that into such forward propulsion and helping so many people. Ironically, for everyone to know, and you can look it up on his LinkedIn, he went to Nottingham University. And so, like, he literally is like taking from the rich, giving to the poor. He's helping people on their journey to sustaining their families.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And I think one personal thing I think I would share, which is, as I sort of said earlier, which was, so I made some mistakes when I was much younger because I grew up in this sort of toxic environment. I did, and I was a criminal. I did those things. I am a convicted felon. I have been, for a good portion of my life, if I'm honest, driven by guilt from my behaviour to want to do as much good as I possibly can.
Right.
So I love our mission because I want to counterbalance the negative inputs I put into my universe with as much good as I possibly can. I've probably reached a point now where I feel like amends has been made, if I'm honest.
Right.
But there was a good portion of my life, 20s, early 30s, where I was like, I need to do as much good as possible to make amends for the things that I did wrong.
Listen,
and that's been my driver.
Arran, that's an awesome driver, but I think it's time to convert that to it just feels good to help people, right? I mean,
it does feel good to help people. Yeah,
it just feels good.
I love it.
And for those watching, I mean, honestly, when you think about your business model and you think about what you're doing to drive revenue for your company and who your target audience is, who you're trying to help, who you're trying to serve in your business, you really need to think about how good does it make you feel to do it. It's a huge, huge driver. If what you're doing as a business just sucks because you're working with shady people doing stupid things, it's not very motivating. It's not very exciting. But when you've got a mission and when that mission can be said in the open and people will look at you and say, hey, that's a good mission, people will jump on board and they'll see your vision and they'll go with you. Would you say that's probably accurate?
Oh, I agree with every word. And what some people don't realize is that doing negative things or doing businesses that maybe don't have a positive impact or don't really offer a true tangible, they're not driven to do good. It doesn't just take from those that you're, making a commercial buck from. Right. It takes from you too.
Oh, 100%.
We are human. Human beings are not driven to be bad. We're not built really to be bad. For whatever reason, I feel like we just get misguided.
Totally.
But it feels so good to do good. And it is so good for the soul.
Yeah.
Like, it really is.
It really is.
I've lived both.
And when you're trying to build a team of like the best of the best and really great people, if they have two choices between two opportunities, they're going to pick the one that feels better every time.
Of course they will. Absolutely. Fulfilling, self-actualization, all of these various components as well. Just, again, I think we've been very fortunate to have such an amazing team join us and get the inertia and traction that we have, and we continue to drive. And it's
I love it.
Do good work.
I love it, Arran. Every business has those moments where you're like, "Oh my gosh, are we going to make it?" And every founder I've talked to always has someone they can point to and say, "I felt inspired and driven because that person had some kind of impact on me." Who's your shout out today? Who do you want to give some kudos to that kind of helped motivate you to keep on going?
So interestingly enough, because it is my business partner, Paul. And awesome. The reason I say Paul is because Paul is 12 years older than me, which I love to make sure that he realizes that he is substantially older than me. But at the time when we got into business together, the age gap was much more prominent. Right. In a sense of, this was a human being that took a shot on a young man, right, and believed in me and supported me and mentored me, but also at the same time, gave me the respect and honor to be an equal, a business partner, right. And there's been many times where I felt like throwing in the towel, tearing the last fragments of my hair out, and he has just been there every step of the way. And now we have built a hugely successful business together that we reap the benefits from, and everybody else does who works for us, and all those that we serve. I love it. And I would not have been able to do it without him. No way. I love it. That is so great to hear, even after 11 years of business together, 13 years of business together. Business partners and that relationship in and of itself is a study of patience and love. And, it is not easy at times. It's great at other times. And sometimes it's like, oh my gosh. But to hear the love and respect that you just expressed to him, that is really impactful to me, having had partners in the past. And way to go. Listen, how do people follow you? Are you present on social media anywhere? What kind of legacy are you leaving? Yeah, so interesting. So I have different dimensions, right? So obviously you can follow me on LinkedIn, Arran Stewart, which you'll get just the professional lens. Right. Twitter, I am on Twitter as well, but Twitter is more of a broadcast of my LinkedIn. But I'm also on Instagram. And on Instagram, I provide several lenses to being a businessman, being a husband, being a father, and also being a person that's fanatically into powerlifting and awesome. and training. So I share all of those dimensions of my life on my Instagram and kind of, and have somewhat of a following on Instagram now that people that watch me and see those several dimensions to me. That's awesome. That's awesome. I was going to guess you had some kind of association with powerlifting. I mean, your shirt looks like it's probably a size small, but it's probably an extra large. So this, believe it or not, this is a triple XL. So I'm a big, I'm like 265 pounds.
Oh,
so
man.
I'm a big human. So, but you know, I've been lifting for 21 years.
Wow.
And 22 years. Goodness, 22 years. And you know, and powerlifting has been a big part of that. And I thoroughly enjoy it. It's my escape.
I love it.
Right? That's my moment. And my wife is a huge fitness fanatic as well, so it's something that we share together.
Love it.
So,
well, listen, we have all been blessed by hearing your story, by hearing your journey, and those listening who are really at that point where they're like, man, can this business really do what I think it can do? This should be an inspiration to you. I appreciate you guys being on today. Share it with people who need to hear this, because this is a fun story. And Arran, thanks so much for being around, bud.
Thank you so much, Todd. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been great. Appreciate it.
All right. What did you think of that interview? I mean, fantastic. If you could understand his English, yeah, those English have a hard time speaking English, but getting past his English, he is just one of those amazing business founders, amazing co-founder, loves his partner, loves everything that they've built together, and very passionate about where they're going, how they're going to get there. They have a plan, they have a path, and I will tell you that I was inspired. I think that you probably were too. When you are on your growth and scaling journey, as many of us are, you find reason to hit roadblocks and just stop there for a minute. Arran and his partner have just plowed through those things, and they have made their success a 12, 13-year journey into an amazing 2021, 2022, and now pushing harder in 2023 to double what they did last year. Absolutely love his vision, love his mission statement, and I love the example he set for people who feel like they've got to have the right connections and the right things in place to make a business successful. You don't, but you do need to find and position yourself, put yourself in a position to succeed. In his case, had he stayed in England, he would not have had the success he has here in America. Why? Because government got in the way. And when government gets in the way, sometimes you got to change your business model or leave. He did. He did both. He kind of tweaked his model, came to America, and boom, things started to move for him. So if you're in that position in your business, I hope you find some inspiration here. I appreciate you being here on the Growth and Scaling podcast, and I hope you will share this episode with other people who need to know what it takes to grow and scale their business and get the support that they need in their inner circle to guide them through their growth journey. Thanks for being here, and please share this with anyone that needs to hear this today.